Hello. Welcome to the Valentines stream. I'm sorry, I thought this was ready, but it seems that it is not. So you're going to watch me do this in front of y'all. Welcome to the Valentine stream. It's so good to have you here. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you have chosen to stay safe this Valentine, and I don't mean safe only with masks, but I mean otherwise as well. Today we have quite the stream. I don't think I've been this excited for any other stream, like at all, any other stream. So we have a few things planned. We have a few people who will be joining us. I have a few things to share. I have questions for the chat. So I need 100% from your side. I'm going to need all of you to be interactive, all of you to send me your comments, send me your questions, contribute to the conversation. You all always have such interesting and important contributions. So please tell me, how you all feel, and when I ask all questions, tell me, I think the biggest gift you can give someone is honesty. So I think you need to be a little honest with me today. Anyway, it's a Valentine's Day, so you can be honest with me. And tell me how you feel when I ask you these questions. Give me just a second. So, before we begin, I wanted to say welcome to our first ever Valentine's stream and my last stream. Thank you for joining me this Valentine's stream. I was so excited about because not only is this my going away stream, but I have some incredible people who are joining us today. I think there are so many topics that we've discussed in the streams earlier that I get the chance to discuss with you all today, with professionals today, get some perspective, get someone who actually knows what they're talking about instead of me, who's just like, I don't really know about much, but I'm going to tell you all what I think. But here is the perfect place to get someone who is knowledgeable in what we're talking about, someone who has learned about what we're talking about, and answer all these questions. Oh no. Give me a break. I'm so sorry. I love how this is my last stream and we're still struggling with OBS. So for today, we have 3 different professionals. We have 2 mental health professionals and a gynecologist in training. But I keep telling Tanya that we're manifesting it, so a gynecologist. If you're on phone and you have a question, you can send it on chat. You can, there's even a Google form in case you want to ask questions anonymously. You can do that. In case the question is something you may be shy about, maybe something you don't want, if you have friends on the stream, if you don't want them to know. If you have questions that you're comfortable sharing on the chat, then please share it on the chat. So I thought we'd start today's stream with a small little example of love. So let me start. This is by E.E. Cummings. Love is more thicker than forget. More thinner than recall, more seldom than a wave is wet, more frequent than to fail, it is most mad and moonly, unless it shall unbe, than all the sea which only is deeper than the sea. Love is less always than to win, less never than alive, less bigger than the least begin, less littler than forgive. It is most sane and sunly, and more it cannot die than all the sky which is only higher than the sky. Love is such an incredible emotion. I want to start with the first question which I asked all of y'all on my Instagram. Is love a choice or a feeling? It can be both. It can be one. Tell me what you think. Chat. Is love a choice or a feeling? Faizan is saying love is an illusion. Interesting, Faizan. I wouldn't disagree, but ideally, the less elusive love is, the better it is, according to me. I mean, I feel like artists always want to make love so much more than it is, but honestly, I feel like love that is almost calm, almost, like it makes you feel the most secure, that you don't have to question this facet in your life, is what love is. Love has been something artists have been trying to articulate and explain for centuries, ever since the start of like dawn of day, okay? People have been trying to express love effectively. Yaya's video got big because love is something everyone has experienced. And the incredible thing about love is, I feel not only does our definition of love constantly change and evolve and adapt as we get older, but love also just is always so different. You will never find a love that's the same. For example, your relationship with your parents, if there is a sense of love, it is still going to be unique from each other. Your friendship that is rooted in love is going to be different from a romantic love. A relationship which has love but is rooted in, sexual intimacy is so unique than any other form of love. So Kilwa is saying, ideally love is a feeling, but sometimes you choose who you love as well. Makes sense? I think so. I think each situation has its own little element to it. Abhinav is saying, love, I guess, is based on individual's way of thinking, his surroundings, and these things. Definitely. I think every person's definition of love is so different, but the matter of the fact is, I truly believe that none of us can experience a love that hasn't been felt on this planet before. And I, as an artist, as a poet, would like to believe that love has been one thing we have been writing about for so long, and as unique as the experience may feel, there is always a poem, a piece of art, a video, a dance choreography, something that evokes that feeling in you, that can make you feel like this is exactly how I feel, this is exactly how my brain feels around this person. So we're going to talk to these three different professionals. We have Ayesha, we have Drishti, and we have Dr. Tanya, who will be joining us. If you have any questions you want to send in, please send them on the chat. If you have a question you want to send in anonymously, there's a form that's being shared, you can send it there. And let's dive in. Before we start this, I would like to give a preface, okay? So today is the Valentines stream, and we're talking about love, but I want to be very clear about what kind of love we're talking about. There are so many kinds of love. Love can be romantic, platonic, maternal, familial, sexual, emotional, heterosexual or homosexual or every other sexual that comes under the LGBT spectrum. Love can be asexual, love can be with one person, it can be with multiple people. It can be with multiple people at one point of your life, or multiple people through your life. Love can be aromantic, love can be so many things, and that's why I urge you, for this stream and henceforth, take love, like give it the biggest favor that you can do is let love just be. Let love exist, explore that love, give it your all, but don't try to put it in these boxes. Don't try to, say this is the most, like only, I can only feel this kind of happiness with this person. Because the incredible thing about love is that it brings you varied emotions, and you'll feel them with different people through different points of your life. And no relationship, I'd like to believe, is always, on the same page. It's important to realize how to communicate with someone you love. In fact, one of the questions we're going to be talking about, even in this stream, is how do you argue with someone you love? Because that is an important part of loving someone and being in a relationship with them, whether that's a romantic partner, whether that's someone in your family. Even arguing effectively is a form of showing these people that you love them. So we're going to jump into all of this. To begin with, we're starting with, I thought I'd start our first session with a little poem so you understand what this session's going to be about. Love After Love by Derek Walcott. A time will come when, with elation, You will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at each other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you've ignored for another who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photograph, the desperate notes, peel your image from the mirror, sit and feast on your life. So, I think this very effectively explains our first session, which is loving yourself. So, for loving yourself, we're going to have Drishti joining us. Drishti Goenka is the founder of Journey Matters. After attaining a master's in counseling and guidance from NTU Singapore in 2015, Drishti moved back to her hometown in Hyderabad to put her training into practice. Rather than a straight and rigid path, Drishti is an advocate for flexible and self-paced route to recovery and growth. She believes in a therapy experience that is unique to each client with an emphasis on steady and authentic healing. If you want to engage with Drishti either during this stream or post this stream, Journey Matters is her handle. We'll be sharing it on the chat as well in case you want to go and explore these both these therapists a little bit, and also they post a lot of content about varied things, so please go check them out, support them. I think my life really changed when I started following mental health professionals on Instagram, because my feed was very often people that sometimes would make me feel bad about myself, but now it is so many of these people who are helping me revalue, reassess, and reapproach parts of my life. Let's get Drishti in. Drishti, would you mind putting your camera on? Let me just... Drishti, would you mind putting your camera on? I'm just going to quickly fix the OBS. So we have you in. Chat, say hi to Drishti. She has chosen to join us, be our Valentine today. Help us explore a very important part of love, which is loving ourselves. Thank you so much for joining, Drishti. I think the chat in general is very enthusiastic, and we've gotten some lovely questions about loving yourself, which I feel is something all of us have a different relationship with, right? Every person's quest, attempt, journey to love themselves is so different than any other person's. I would like to start by asking you one question, which even the chat is going to answer, which is, Drishti, what word would you describe for love? One word. And this doesn't have to be romantic. It could be any form of love. Just one word you feel is fitting for love.
Compassion.
Compassion. Such a beautiful word.
Yeah,
I like
I
that.
think I
Very
would say
wise.
compassion. Yeah.
I agree. Like, and I think this applies to every relationship in your life, to be compassionate,
Absolutely.
whether it's with yourself, whether it's with someone else, all of it comes through with your how you express your compassion towards them or yourself. So we're just gonna wait on the chat to tell us what words they think. Someone has said care. That's true. You show people you
Yeah,
care for
of
them in
course.
different ways.
Yeah.
Affection is one we've gotten. Fair, I get
Mm-hmm.
that. Vedika has said comforting. I would say, I'd say happy. I like to believe that love makes me very happy. I'm a poet, so I think it's very obvious that I love. A lot of us
Mm-hmm.
poets, very often we fall in love with the idea of love in its own sense, knowing that emotion and, your feelings can have such a big impact on not only someone else, but we hear about love stories from centuries ago. There's a reason we still talk about Romeo and Juliet, because love connects people irrespective of time, age, or, what differences matter. Love is something that almost like connects all of us over the universe. So,
True.
So Drishti,
If I have to add another word, I think I would also
yeah,
say safety.
safety, absolutely. That sense of security, that
Yeah.
sense of calmness, knowing someone has your back. I agree. I feel like
Yeah.
I learned this. It took me a hard lesson to learn this, realizing that
I'm with you there.
relationships
Yeah.
deserve that sense of calmness, that security. But we have some incredible questions that people have submitted,
Yes,
and the chat
please.
will be asking questions as well. Just a few more
Mm-hmm.
people have said care, understanding. Bharat has said safe, which I feel like we've
Mm-hmm.
touched upon. Belonging, interesting. We'll discuss that. Fulfilling. Ayusha said my dog, which I think Drishti you will understand.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally will.
Can I just say, chat, I was talking to Drishti today morning. She sent me a photo of her papa and telling me that she was introducing me to her Valentine. And so I think Drishti really understands that, Ayush. Harshita has written respect, which I think is true, very important in any
Mm-hmm.
relationship in your life. Lovely. So let's begin with the questions. Let's just approach this as it is. I'm sure people will have their own comments. We don't have to, Drishti, honestly, you don't have to agree with all these comments. Please feel free to tell us if, you feel like there's a better way to reapproach something, because that's the purpose
Mm-hmm.
of the stream like this. So the first question I received, so I put up this form, and I think this was one of the first three questions I got. It said, how do you accept your flaws, and can you love yourself even while being flawed?
Mm. Okay. How do you accept your flaws? Just I think accept that you're a human being. Just knowing
Absolutely.
that you're not, nobody is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
We all come with things that are good about us and things that are not so good about us. And what may be a flaw to me may not be a flaw for somebody else,
So true.
right? So, are you really allowing yourself to be human?
So true. Absolutely. I think it's about having that kindness for yourself. Very
Yes.
often we are like, I catch myself so often when my best friend's feeling low. I'm like, how can you think
Mm-hmm.
this way about yourself? You are so incredible. And then I'm like
Yeah.
making myself feel bad. And I realize that I'm the very problem, and you realize that there's a little bit of hypocrisy, but I think even that comes with this want to get better. But I think it's also, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, our want to get better is an important part of like constantly growing, educating ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
learning. But also at the same time, it takes being comfortable with just being as you are, being able to say, yes, these are parts of me I need to work
Mm-hmm.
on, these are parts of
Yep.
me that are my strengths. I think
Mm-hmm.
accepting yourself is knowing that you're never going to be a finished product, right?
Absolutely. And people kind of think of self-love as, just like feeling good about yourself, but it's so much more than that.
Absolutely.
Self-love is just, where you're at that stage of like appreciation of the things that you do for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because it's something that's continuously evolving. It's something that matures you. It's things that make you feel good. I find that it's a very temporary phase,
Absolutely. It's a
and it
it's a
doesn't last.
process, right? It's a
Yes,
process to
absolutely.
take with yourself, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So I hope that gives you a little bit of insight. Speaking about, how you were saying that self-love, when it's just,
Mm,
something that makes you feel good in the moment, it can be temporary. But if you're on this journey, someone has asked, what are constructive or healthy forms of self-care? Very often people will be
mm,
like, order that extra meal or do this, which are, a lot of the things you see on Instagram. But
mm,
what are forms of self-care that we can explore that are healthy, that are constructive, that can maybe help in a long-term process?
hmm. So, some of the self-care strategies that even I personally put in place, and some things that I very strongly advocate to my clients very often. Um, Simple things like, when we call someone, what's the first question we ask? How are
How are
you?
you? Yes.
How often are you asking that to yourself? Are you really emotionally checking in with yourself daily, like you would with Say your house help has come, how are you? Anybody who comes home, how are you? Are you really asking this question to yourself? It's
Absolutely.
it's about setting boundaries. It's about having certain priorities set in place, right? Whether it's at work, whether it's at in your personal life, are you really setting boundaries for yourself? Are you really sitting and thinking about, well, these are my hard no's, which is something that I will not tolerate. This is something that I can manage, and this is something that's completely okay with me. So, do you really have that awareness?
And do you know yourself like that? I think, when I started therapy, a big part of being able to communicate my boundaries was me acknowledging
Hmm.
what my boundaries were in the first place. I think I just know, okay, this is what I like, I don't like this. But I have to ask myself, what am I willing to tolerate? What am I willing to, compromise on? What am I willing to communicate? What am I going to say no to? It's about asking yourself that and giving yourself that chance to learn and grow, right?
Truly. I mean, we had to go through a very strenuous, like a personal therapy experience, which was part of my course. Like, they wouldn't let me graduate if I don't complete
Wow.
minimum of 6 personal therapy sessions. So, and these are all personal development, sessions that we had to undergo as well, because we need to understand who we are as a person and how that directs who we are as a professional.
Mm.
What boundaries do we have as a person, and how that affects the boundaries we set in our professions as well. So, whether you're in the mental health field or any field that you work at, have you really drawn those boundaries for yourself?
So I think that's so important, and I feel like you're suggesting a really good place to ask, to
Hmm.
begin. Like, ask yourself, how are you feeling? What
Yep.
emotion are you feeling right now? I remember when I began to discuss my anxiety with my therapist. The first thing she
Mm-hmm.
told me to do is in that moment is ask yourself, what is the emotion I'm feeling? What is causing the emotion I'm feeling? And
Mm-hmm.
accordingly, like, say, okay, what is the solution to, or what is something I can do to help make myself
Mm-hmm.
feel better? And I think one of the questions we have is, how can I self soothe when I'm anxious? Is
Mm-hmm.
there maybe a little suggestion you could give to just start with, maybe? Because I think this would be a little more personal. I think this person should
Certainly.
ideally, have a relationship with their own therapist and maybe bring this up.
Mm-hmm.
But what are some forms of self soothing when we become anxious?
I would say the first step is identifying your physical, your body sensations to the thing that you're anxious towards, right? Is going inward, is really looking into yourself and seeing how is your body reacting to it. What is it that's making you anxious? What's triggering you?
Mm-hmm.
And then different strategies work for different people. For some, meditation works beautifully for some
Mm.
people. For some people, at they've already reached a certain stage in their anxiety that meditation causes them further anxiety because
Of
they're
course, yeah.
unable to kind of calm themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people go for a walk or go for a run to just get some sweat out of the body.
Mm.
Sometimes, like when I work with small children or just even students who are experiencing anxiety, the simple thing that works with them is a glass of water.
Just catching your breath, right?
It's yes, and I mean, if I could go even further into strategies with like drinking water, the water bottles that have a sucking thing to it, it soothes you. They're supposed to be self-soothing. So for anxious children,
Oh.
that's what we usually recommend.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I can understand the association of why it would
Yes.
self-soothe, and maybe it takes you back to a more
Mhm.
like primitive age where being
Absolutely.
cared for. But wow, it's so interesting how when you come from this perspective of trying to help people feel better, even these small
Mhm.
things make such a big difference.
Yes, absolutely. They really do.
This is a big question, but I thought maybe we could answer
Okay.
it a little bit loosely. Um, this question, which I think it's such a lovely question. It's really rooted in like trying to work on yourself and explore. It goes, how can I provide for myself in a way that I can be self-sufficient? I have two questions. A
Mm.
is, um, I mean, I've heard that we're social creatures. Is
Hmm.
self-sufficiency something that we can attain? If yes, what kind of self-sufficiency should we be working towards? Because I'm assuming our relationships is what makes us connect, puts us in different situations, different positions,
Hmm.
help us experience things. So the question was, how can I provide for myself in a way that I can be self-sufficient?
So I'm understanding here that from self-sufficient, the person is kind of alluding to more of an emotionally self-sufficient person,
Yes.
like you're very independent. Um, I would say the first thing would be to not strive for self-sufficiency so
I, yeah,
aggressively,
absolutely.
and just let yourself be, even if you need to ask for help. It's not about being dependent. It's about knowing what you need. And if you need is some help, there's nothing wrong in asking for it.
Absolutely.
So is just go with the flow. If you feel, just listen to your body, listen to your emotions, your thoughts. If you feel that they're slightly leaning towards what you would believe is slightly negative for you, still, it's still something that you're experiencing. Even your negative emotions and your thoughts are information.
Absolutely. Wow. Absolutely. Because it helps you understand yourself, understands what's causing this. I think one of the biggest, like, something I've been struggling with for the past year. I'm going to say that I don't think I've like fully accomplished this well. I'm trying to sit and understand what about the relationships in my life that bring me a certain amount of anxiety. Where does it come
Mm-hmm.
from?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Do I see traits in the other person that I mirror, that I see in myself that I maybe don't like? Is it that they remind me of a situation that made me feel uncomfortable or unsafe? I think it's really about, as you said, it's information. Once we find out what these stressors are or what causes this, it becomes easier to assess why it's happening, if it's the person or if it's
Yeah.
us. I'm sure we've heard the "it's not you, it's me," but I think it's pretty
Oh,
applicable in situations like
yeah,
these.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think what you're saying is also another like very, very helpful strategy of self-love is to gauge the relationships that you're in. And I'm not just talking about a romantic relationship, but there's even your friendships. Are they are they really toxic? And the questions that you just sort of mentioned that you ask yourself, these are great questions to start with. How is this relationship really making me feel? And what parts of me, is this relationship really trying to get at? And what personality of mine is coming out when I am with this person versus
Mm.
some other person?
Absolutely. That's so true because every person brings out a different side of yourself. I mean, you are very
Yeah,
much yourself, irrespective of who you're with. But it's about you're a little bit more this person when you're with a certain friend
yeah,
group, or even when you're by yourself, when you're with one person as compared to five people. To a certain extent, all of these things make a difference and add a sense of like nuance to when we're thinking about this.
true, true.
So that's why I had asked. I said, is when you started speaking about this, that's why I asked, is
Yeah,
self-sufficient something that we should make as a goal? But I feel like you've explained
no,
that there's ways we can,
no.
be fulfilled with ourselves, I think, but also know when to
Hmm.
reach out to help, when to ask someone to support us, when to ask someone to be
Hmm.
there for us.
So do
This
you remember that one cartoon, Aranya? It was a comic strip that had come out with this one girl on the bed, and she's like, "Oh, I need to be held. I think I want to be supported," and all sorts of things. And immediately the next strip was, "Oh wait, I'm an empowered woman. I don't need all these things," with like a really sad face.
Yeah, it's the duality, right? Even independent
Yeah.
women that we, set this up for. I think even the idea of like a boss ass bitch that we often talk about, it
Mm,
seems very emotionally absent. I think even boss ass bitches and, independent
absolutely.
women go through these overwhelming experiences, feel low at times. But it's about being able to know that with the right investment, with the
Yeah.
right effort, you can bounce back, you know? work through things. Um,
Absolutely.
this is a question I feel like I would ask myself. It says, I'm always overtly analytical when it comes to myself. How do I contest my negative thinking? It's big, I'm
It's
sure. But if you could give
it's
us a
big.
good place to
It's
start.
big. So I would say, this was something that I was thinking of. I was thinking of, it was exactly this that I wanted to actually design my post for today. But then I realized that my limited design skills are not really allowing me to put my idea onto paper. It was just like putting your self-critic to sleep. And it's sort of
Mm,
today is the day that you wake the person up who really empowers you and gives you all the positive messages that you need.
absolutely. Drishti, you're breaking up.
What do I call them? I don't want to call them personalities. What
Sorry.
do I call them?
Oh, you're back. Okay, you're
Hello?
back. You're back, you're back.
Ha. Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, go on.
Super. So what
So,
do I call them? Do I call them personalities? I don't want to call them personalities. But we have a self-critic in us,
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
we also have somebody else who kind of balances things out for us, right? So what happens is that the other person is usually fast asleep, and the self-critic is up and about, up all night, and just like giving you all the messages that a self-critic usually does.
Remember this
So
time in
now is the
third
time to
grade
put
that this
that person to
happened?
sleep.
Your brain's like, remember
Oh,
that time when this
remember when you
happened?
said, yeah, remember that meeting where you said something so silly and everybody
Yeah.
gave you that weird look?
But
Well,
Drishti, even that, something I realized that, like, I would say fairly recently, is that the way I obsessively think about all of those moments that I wish no one like
mm,
acknowledged, people are spending their time thinking about their own moments. They're not
yeah,
really thinking about mine, if
no
that
one
makes
remembers
sense.
it
Yeah,
but us.
exactly.
Yeah,
Except
no
you.
one remembers it but us.
And like, it changed my life the minute I realized that, I feel a lot of us don't realize that the way we think in our head, where we're like the main characters of our life,
Hmm.
every person thinks that way. We would like to
Oh,
believe that other people think about us as much as we think about ourselves, but realistically, that's not what's happening. In fact, there's
no.
this rapper named Mac Miller, and he has this line which says,
Mm-hmm.
people love you when they are on your mind. A thought is love's currency. Which I think is
Mm,
so, even with yourself,
beautiful.
even when you're like, oh, when you're thinking a little too much, it comes from a place of where you are trying to make yourself better. I think a lot of, at least when it comes to me, a lot of this like negative thinking comes from a place that I'm trying to convince myself that I will somehow be a more lovable version of myself. But I am
Mm-hmm.
coming to realize that I will always have things that I have to work on. Ideally, like, I mean, I don't think any of us are ever going to reach like a finish. Like, I am the best me I can be. There's always scope for improvement, and being
Yeah.
like having weaknesses doesn't make you any less lovable,
No,
right?
no, no, absolutely not. And it was so strange for me because for me, this realization is very, very powerful for me because it was exactly how I felt it during my therapy sessions as well. So, I kept saying, well, this is not what, this is something I'm not good at this, I'm not good at this is something I always do and it works against me. And my therapist was like, Srishti, just let your self critic put their hand down and let the other guy speak for a bit. I'm like, is that possible? She's like, yeah, there is that person somewhere inside. You've just got to wake him up or her up or whatever gender you want to assign it.
Yeah,
I'm like,
absolutely.
okay. And
Absolutely.
it took me so much time to wake that person up and hear those messages. It took a lot of patience.
Of course.
You need to really be patient. You need to really be ready to listen to it and you need to believe in it.
And we're not always ready, right, Rishti? It
No,
takes a
no,
availability, I guess, to a certain extent. It takes
it
a
does.
willingness, right?
Yeah, yeah, certainly it does take a willingness. You should want to be able to hear it. That person, poor
Absolutely.
guy, has been screaming inside and you're
For
just not
years,
listening.
for years.
Yeah.
So true. I feel like I feel it's such a good place to start. Silence the self-critic, even if it's starting for just for a day, because that's
Yes.
how it begins. Or if it's something smaller, right? And ease into it.
Absolutely. Very, very small steps. Baby steps, I would say. Let's say baby
Ab-
steps towards it.
Absolutely. I'm seeing. Okay, we've got a few questions come in. I'm just going to check. Uh, wow, we're getting a lot of responses on the chat, so I'm just going to quickly see.
Sure, sure.
Mm. Also, I love that all of y'all are giving each other advice on the chat, but if you are, interacting on the chat, just know that not everyone here has been trained or equipped to give you advice and assist you. We have Drishti and Tanaya and Aisha for a little more perspective on that. So take the chat's advice with a little bit of a grain of salt. Um, Let me see. Okay. How do you deem yourself worthy enough of receiving love? Is that something you do? Is that something you realize? Is that is that something you come to? What like
How
is
do you
it
deem
something we've
yourself?
because see that's the thing. I feel like
Hmm.
we're all worthy of love, but
We
like
are.
there's a very famous quote from this book, Perks of Being a Wallflower. It says, "You
Mhm.
accept the love you think you deserve." Right? So when very often I find myself when people are being very like loving and kind to me, I'm so very often my brain's like, no, I don't deserve this kindness. But until
Mhm.
I myself, I'm like, I deserve that kindness, I deserve that respect, I deserve people respecting my boundaries. These are things you come to. So is that like, do you have to acknowledge that? Is that something you have to work on? Do you think it's present, but we're in denial of it?
I would say that if I would first want to understand how this person is being loving towards themselves, because
Okay.
then again, that's the kind of love that you kind of accept in your life. So if
So
you are
true.
being too critical of yourself, then you tend to attract people who are kind of known to point out everything that you do which is wrong.
Because that's how you understand love.
That's how you understand love.
So
How you
basically,
do
we're
it
the
is
problem.
you understand it.
It's like if when people are trying
I
to love
won't say
us.
problem, but I really feel like
Oh no, Drishti, I'm scared we're
waiting
losing you.
for love and waiting or expecting certain things from people. Sorry, can you hear
Absolutely.
me now?
Yes, yes. It's all good now. Um,
Yeah,
how do you love? Okay,
yeah.
what about love and self-respect simultaneously? I think those go hand in hand, right? What do you think, Drishti?
They certainly go hand. They certainly go hand in hand, and um, I would say it would be either step number two for me. So step number one is obviously it's acceptance, right? You first accept yourself as you are.
Mm-hmm.
Accept all your feelings, allow yourself to feel all your feelings, not dismiss any thoughts. And the second one, then comes the respect part. Then you respect what you're feeling, you respect your thoughts. It doesn't mean that you believe in each of those things.
Of
It's
course.
just that you just accept it and you respect that it's
It
there.
that is there. Like allow its presence to be,
Yeah.
right?
And not associate your identity with that. So if I am feeling angry right now, I am just someone who is feeling angry. I'm not an angry person. So don't associate your
Mm.
identity with
How
your
you're
feelings.
feeling and how you
Yeah.
respond to situations. Vivek has asked an incredible question on chat. He says,
Yes.
what kind of responsibilities come with love? I think it's somewhat like what we
Hmm.
discussed earlier, right? That sense of safety, someone having your back. What do you think?
Actually, there's a sense of safety. Um, I would think, and is this in context with loving yourself or just loving people in general?
Vivek has left that for us to decide. I think let's approach
Okay.
it with
So if you say
ourselves.
what okay, so you have a responsibility then towards yourself to stand up for yourself.
Absolutely. Communicate when you're feeling unheard.
Yes,
Know when to say no. Is that, would you say that is also a form?
absolutely. So if you love yourself, then the responsibility that comes with it is that you really stand up for yourself. Then you really, like you said, communicate your needs.
Yes.
You communicate your expectations. You let people know what you're going through.
Absolutely. I think it also begins with exactly where you said to start, right? Check in. Once you understand it, work on what your brain, your body, what it's telling you,
Hmm.
what it's offering you, right? So if it's telling you you're feeling unsafe in a certain situation, it falls on you to act on it, right?
True,
Ideally, I mean,
true,
there are definitely situations where people don't have that mobility, but
true.
it's about recognizing that. It's about being able to, as you said, like as you check in,
Hmm, hmm.
understand where these things are coming from and
Yeah,
be there for
and
yourself.
I think, and there's also like you also another part about loving yourself is also putting in place, some self-care strategies, like things that you do for yourself to look after yourself.
Hmm.
So if you say that you love yourself, it is your responsibility to, kind of delve into self-care strategies and be consistent with it. And you have
Absolutely.
a responsibility towards your body. You have a responsibility towards your mind.
Absolutely. And each of these things, and also these to a certain extent, vary person to person. But
Yeah.
also, it's about like listening to yourself. Very often, I find myself, I'm like, what do I do? But my brain is very often being like, okay, this is making me anxious. Can we speak to this person about it? Like it's trying to help us reach that conclusion, but it's
Yeah.
about giving it that chance to speak to us, for us to listen to it.
Hmm.
Um, Also, chat, we're going to be wrapping up this session soon. So if y'all have any more questions to ask, please send them on the chat or on the form. And Drishti's Instagram handle has also been shared. So if y'all want to go support her, reach out to her, maybe, ask her for some help, please go ahead. Um, so we have, this is again, like I feel like some of these are heavy questions, but what I would urge is that if you could tell us where we can start, because I think these
Okay.
are ways you explore, with ideally a mental health professional.
Hmm.
um how can I work on forgiving myself and or be kind to myself? So someone else on the chat said, I really struggle with understanding what I'm good at or
Hmm.
appreciating when I'm good at things. I feel like these are kind of
Hmm.
mixed, right? We don't allow ourselves to, either we take a little too much pride in what we're good at or none at all. I feel it's either sides of the spectrum.
Um, I'll take the first part of your
Sure.
question um is about forgiving ourselves
Yes.
and
Being kind to
hard
ourselves. Oh,
and
of
being kind
course.
to ourselves. It's it's hard. It's very hard. And there's something that I read recently that resonated so true for me is that you don't need to forgive yourself or someone to be compassionate towards yourself or to someone else. So you can still hold me responsible for something that I did wrong. You
Absolutely.
don't have to forgive me, but you can still be compassionate. So these two are not necessarily linked.
Yeah, they can coexist, right?
They can
You
coexist.
can hold
Yeah.
someone accountable but still be compassionate and empathize with
Yeah,
them.
absolutely. So I think that's where people really confuse these two because they think that compassion comes after forgiveness. It doesn't have to be.
I feel like I wish we did this a few months ago. I would have saved myself a lot of mistakes. But it's about, at least now, henceforth, I'll be a little bit more aware. How about we end this like little section of questions that people sent in with I think it's such a simple question, but I find myself, and I saw this, I said, even I don't know, like, how do I know this?
Hmm.
The question is, how do I know if I love myself?
Ask yourself that question.
If you do, Like, do I love
Ask
myself?
yourself, do I love myself? Go in front of the mirror and ask.
Ask.
Oh,
And
my favorite thing to do. My favorite thing to do is, I like putting things on a scale. So I would say, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest form of love, and one is like the least form
the
of love.
least.
How much do you love yourself? Where would you rate yourself in how much you love yourself? And that number may surprise you.
And it'll keep changing, I'm assuming, right? With like
It will
different
keep changing.
situations. Do you think that's also a good place to like
Absolutely.
check in? How am I feeling about
Yes,
myself? Like, am I feeling loving towards myself today? If I'm not, why am I not feeling loving? How can I,
absolutely.
implement that in my life?
Absolutely.
Drishti, one of the ways, so when I was like probably my lowest in my life, when I was like I was severely depressed. Depression, I think, runs in
Hmm.
my family. So we have the science, working for us.
Hmm.
um, I would just not take care of myself. I would not find motivation to
Hmm.
even do things that seem as simple as go for a shower, tend for
Yeah.
myself when I was sick or when I was injured. One of the ways I look at myself and I'm like, I know it's getting bad again, is when I catch myself slipping up on those small things. When I'm
Mm.
like, if I know I'm supposed to take a medicine and I'm like, it's fine if I don't. I'm like, no, we
Mm.
know where this comes from. We can find this. We will. And I feel like, to me, doing those smaller things is how I'm showing
Hmm.
myself, see, I'm investing in you. It's because I love you. It's like I'm
Hmm.
trying to, show you I love you in these different ways. So, for example, it sounds so quaint. One of the ways I try to like self-soothe is, when I moisturize myself, I try to give myself affirmations,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to talk to myself. I'm like, today we're going to be kind to you, to yourself, and we're going to be kind to other people. There's ways to be there's ways to be clear and set your
Mm.
boundaries while also being kind. And I'm doing, I'm like moisturizing myself and I'm telling myself this. And when I catch
Yeah.
myself slipping up on that, that's how I know that I should maybe show a little extra love or understand why I'm slipping up on it. Is there a way that you would
Hmm.
suggest that we can find out if we know that, okay, maybe we need to put in a little bit more effort with ourselves, or maybe we need to sit down and think a little bit today, introspect a little bit? Is there a cue you would
Hmm.
suggest on what should trigger that? Let's assess this. Something is going wrong.
Mm. I think Aranya, you kind of said it. When you see yourself slipping through, like really like everyday tasks that are extremely mundane, like
Yeah.
doesn't require much thought process. So, I know I'm not feeling very well this week when I've just left like my load of laundry unfolded.
Yeah.
Otherwise, usually I'm pretty prompt with it and I try to make sure everything's away. But if like 2, 3 days slip away and I still not even bothered to look at it, then that's a sign. But I would be careful. Please don't get scared when you
Mm.
see yourself. So these things happen, right? So we also go through these phases where there are days we don't feel like doing something, and there are days where we feel very, very up and about and very productive. So just because you're slipping on the smaller things doesn't mean that you're really going into depression. It's
Yes.
just a sign for you to just check in with yourself.
A little extra love
Yes,
when you
a
know you
little
need it.
extra something.
Yeah.
Whether you go and talk to someone, or approach anybody in your life that you would feel is that person of support for you.
Yes.
Just anything, just reach out and talk to someone. It needn't even be a professional. It can
Okay.
be anyone.
Your support system, right?
Yes.
Got it. Thank you so much, Rishti. This has been so insightful.
Thank
Is there
you.
something you would like to tell us with the questions you've seen coming in? If there's something you would like to contribute to this conversation, maybe on like something you learned on your journey of, your relationship with loving yourself. Anything you would like to add to this conversation?
Um, I think my relationship with loving myself has been a hard and long one, but I'm grateful and thankful that I've I've reached a place where I'm comfortable. I won't say I'm quite there yet, it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of training your mind and your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And what you were referring to earlier, Aranya, was just a lot of self-talk. So I talk to myself a lot, and that really helps. Even when I'm outside in public, and people just look at me weirdly, like, is this lady really talking to herself? I'm like, yeah, I am talking to myself. I think out loud, and that's
That's, I think,
so.
such a great place to
Yeah,
begin. Like, talk to yourself, ask yourself those
yeah,
questions,
talk to
even
yourself.
if
Yeah.
get comfortable with being uncomfortable if that's what it takes, but ask yourself those
Hmm.
questions because they're important.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. I think, even the chat
Thank
has,
you.
contributed and asked like questions so parallel to what we've been discussing. Before we go on, I just want to say thank you, Drishti. Drishti's handle is available on our chat if you want to reach out. And thank you so much for joining, Drishti. You can stay on,
Thanks.
but we're going to have Aisha session soon. But let me
Super.
bring it in. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Um, Loving others. Loving others is, I feel like we find ways to love other people a lot easier than we can find it in ourselves to love ourselves. But when it comes to loving other people, it's not just easy to just A, love them, and B, to make them feel loved. So we're going to be exploring with Aisha, what does it mean to love others? How can we love others better? And just explore. And when we talk about loving others, this doesn't have to be romantic. So if y'all are sending in questions, for example, some of the questions we've got submitted is how to show your family love as well, because all of these different relationships in your life have ideally, or hopefully, have a base level of love, and has and a want from your side to explore, to express your love. So we're going to discuss that with Aisha. Aisha is a psychotherapist and the founder of Dialogue Mental Health. She received a master's degree in clinical mental health sciences at University College of London and has been trained in several specific therapies, namely couples and family therapy, expressive art therapies, somatic psychology, and group analysis, among others. She has worked extensively with adolescents and young adults in schools and college and has set up a counseling helpline before founding Dialogue. The support she provides is trauma informed, psychosocial, and queer affirmative. So, Sharas, you're asking what is our opinion on the LGBT community. They are more than welcome to be a part of this conversation. In fact, our making love session is also queer friendly. So, if you have any questions that may be, is not about heterosexual relationships, please feel free to share them during any of the two upcoming sessions. Um, Aisha, can we have you put your screen on, your camera on? Lovely.
Hi.
Hello, I'm just going to get you on screen. I don't think the chat can see you yet. Okay, there we go. Chat, say hello to Aisha. Aisha's going to help us discuss loving others, which I think is not only one of the most prominent forms of love in our life, but I think we end up finding ourselves being a lot more kind and compassionate to others as compared to ourselves. But very often, it's our relationship with others that impact our relationship with ourselves. So I wanted to begin with a question that I wanted to ask you, Aisha, and I was gonna request the chat to tell me this experience as well. Think back to some point in your life that you felt loved. It doesn't have to be romantic. It could be a family, it could be a friend. It can be romantic if it is. But a moment you really felt like, yes, this person cares for me, this person loves me. Chat, any contributions? It could be any relationship. It could even be a teacher looking out for you in a certain way.
Hmm.
If I was to think of a certain way that I felt loved, at home we have this South Indian kind of mirchi, which has salt and dahi inside it, so it's not really that spicy. But you're supposed to roast it in oil. There was this one day my mom came back really tired. She had like a busy day. She had, like lots of stuff on her schedule. She knew I was working till really late, but my food was kept out. But she saw, like, she knows I like to have it with dal rice or specifically with curd rice. And she saw that for dinner we had dal rice. Our help at home had already slept off. So mom made the mirchi that I love just out of pure want of me to enjoy my meal, knowing that this is something that would bring me some joy. It's something I didn't even have to tell her. I didn't request it. It just came from mom knowing that this is how I enjoy my meals, knowing that this would make my day a little bit easier. And she did that out of just pure want to like support me like that and be there for me like that.
Yeah.
Ayesha said whenever my dog licks my face, which I think I understand. You were going to say something.
Yeah, I think that sounds a lot like, just being known and seen and heard, and, your needs being taken into consideration without having to fight for them or put them out there. Just being in somebody's thoughts, like you said, thoughts are the currency of love, was it?
Absolutely, yeah.
That was
A
so
thought is
beautiful.
love's currency.
Yeah.
Which I think, honestly, that's the perfect way to put it. I remember I read this entire paper about how the way we humans understand love is how much we feel someone else understands us, how much they
Yeah.
empathize with us, how much we feel like, okay, they may not have experienced what I have, but they know exactly how this would make me feel. Them knowing your coffee order. It's those smaller like things as well. So
Yeah.
we have a few really lovely questions sent in, and chat, please go ahead and send in any questions you may have about loving others and your relationship with others. It doesn't have to be romantic. It can be romantic if that's what you want to ask. Um, the first question I wanted to ask you, something that really changed my life when I learned about it, and I feel like the chat could really benefit from learning about it as well. Um, what are love languages?
So, love languages are, it's a beautiful question. Love languages, and a lot of what you said, I was immediately struck by, oh, that was an act of service and that was an act of kindness towards you.
Exactly.
And, and I was thinking, I felt love. I think you asked me that, but I thought you
Yes.
were addressing the chat, so I got confused. But
No, please tell me.
when I felt loved is simply when somebody has also told me explicitly, written me a letter, appreciating me. And I think that's what strikes me most. And so
Absolutely.
my love language would be words of affirmation, words of encouragement, verbal expressions. So love languages are simply the ways in which we most like to receive or give love. And there are so many ways. I mean, I know earlier you were saying that there is not one kind of feeling of love that has not been lived through before, and yet it
Yeah.
feels so new.
So unique to us,
Yeah,
right?
it feels so
Absolutely.
personal, it's so universal, and yet it's so personal to you that you cannot even express it to somebody else what you felt in that moment. And so
So true.
Gary Chapman is a marriage and family therapist who worked extensively for many, many years. And based on his experiences, he kind of collated this data and he said, well, there seems to be 5 broad ways in which people like to receive and give love. And those are, words of affirmation. So if somebody likes to hear, how valued they are, how treasured they are, words of encouragement, you're going to do well, everything's under control, and I know you're going to be great. Or, they want, you look beautiful today, compliments, all of these kinds of words of affirmation. Another type is quality time, which is just that you value presence from your partner. You want them to be with you fully, mentally, emotionally. You're doing something together and you're not just sitting side by side and being on your phone. It's actually doing it's a ritual of connection. um,
So beautifully put, honestly.
yeah, and I think it's these rituals that really put um, the connection back into our mundane life when we move out of the first the honeymoon phase of
Of
love.
course. At
Um,
that point, it's everything is,
yeah,
introducing, evoking that response and that emotion. But it's about carrying it forward, even post the honeymoon phase, even
yeah,
post when you're getting comfortable with each other, getting used to each other's presence.
yeah,
Quality, like time spent together, is irreplaceable, right? Which is why even this pandemic has hit all of us in such a different way. We didn't realize how much we appreciated, and frankly, like, I would say, needed that kind of time we had with each other. Even like, my best friend was on like, she was performing recently,
hmm,
and she was telling us about how during the pandemic she would just look at photos of, photos she would click, not even like post photo, just photos she would click with her friends.
hmm,
And that's what, like, she would reminisce about during the pandemic, just spending time with her friends, something
absolutely,
as little as that. So we've
absolutely.
got words of affirmation, we've got quality time.
But most importantly, what you touched on was in the pandemic, I think the loss that we felt is of physical touch. You
Mm,
know, it is, and it's called skin hunger that we felt not met in that way, um, because there is intimacy in touch. You meet somebody, you greet them with a hug, and now, given the pandemic situation, even if you're daring to step out,
hmm.
everybody is at 6 feet distance, which is great. But also,
Yes,
there is some need of connection that we feel through
yes.
this touch. So, there is physical touch.
Physical touch, so that's three.
Three. Then there is acts of service, like I said, making your loved one's life easier.
I think
Your
that's the
mom
best way to
knew,
put it. The
yeah,
small things, that make it a
yeah,
little bit easier.
absolutely. It is anticipating, it is being thoughtful, it is, making sure that when you leave in the morning, there's a dabba for you to take for lunch, or it
Mm.
is
Or
when
like
you're
someone
in.
ironing your shirt preemptively.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anticipating your needs and acting to make them meet them.
Oh, absolutely. So you don't even have to, very often, either it's understood or it's communicated previously, I'm assuming. So this
Yeah,
person understands that this is one way that you will feel better, your day may be easier.
mm,
And so we've got a super chat for you, Aisha,
hmm.
for the OG babe minister.
Oh,
Um, okay.
okay.
Anyway, for us today, we have Aisha here to help us understand loving others. So we're
Hmm.
gonna go for that instead.
Hmm.
Um, but I think it's about the small things, right? Like, for example,
Absolutely.
uh, one way I realized, my brother and I think because we're siblings and we have a bigger age gap, we show
Hmm.
love in ways that aren't very obvious. So a few weeks ago, my brother came over and he forgot his charger, and he was like, "Can you get it sent to me?" I said,
Hmm.
"Sure." And the first
Hmm.
thing I did was I went and I placed an order for him to get an extra charger so he could keep on in his bag and head out. And I just did that instinctively. And then when I was telling my mom about it, that's when my mom was like, "That was such a thoughtful thing." And I was like, we don't even, so many of these, smaller things aren't even like,
They go
let's
under the
do
radar.
this. Yeah. And it's like, we're not like, we will make them feel loved, It comes so intrinsically, it comes so organically, it comes so naturally. And I
It's in
think
the everyday.
it's in the everyday, and it's in the idea that you're giving this person a chance to just make their life a little bit easier, tad bit
Abs-
better, if anything.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
what is our last one?
Last one is giving gifts.
Gifts.
So it is, and it's not just about the grand gestures.
Mm-hmm.
People think, oh, Valentine's Day is coming and I have to get this, these 5 things and I have to make a big thing out of it. But it is actually the process of giving gifts. What would this person like? What would they value? What
Yeah.
represents my relationship with them? And then you
Mm,
act to kind of pick something out or make something. But it is the act of giving that is
absolutely.
valuable rather than the gift itself.
My primary form of my love language is gifting people. So I've been working tentatively since I've been about 15.
Hmm.
Ever since I've started, making my own pocket money, I have spent a little bit of it at least on the people in my life. And it's just, for example, like my mom's into tarot. I'd get her a tarot deck. If I know a friend of mine wants to explore a certain skill, I'd like get them something to help them explore it. And I've been doing this almost my entire life. I can't draw at all, but I used to, get these. I remember that time we had MAD, which was this Rob from Mad used to run it. Okay, you would get these
the art thing.
the art, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm so bad at art. Okay, and like I can't draw like at all. But I would get these DIY boxes and I would make little cards for my parents and I would color and stuff. So way before it became like things that I could invest in monetarily, I was still somehow, attempting to express my love through that. But I didn't realize until I learned about love languages as recently as a year ago. But I think the immediate second thought after learning about my own love languages was trying to understand the love language of other people in my life, because
Yeah.
I didn't understand that people, since they have different love languages, their attempts to make me feel loved was never understood by me because I had a different love language.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head because, the thing about love languages is not becoming aware about, oh, this is what my preference is. It is using that to enrich your relationship. So, it's also actively seeking to know, okay, what is your love language and how can I make you feel loved? Because maybe the way that I'm showing you love is not making you feel loved,
Mm,
because it's just not a language you understand. And
so
it's
true.
absolutely okay, So I'm going to make an effort to kind of do that. I think earlier you were asking, is love a feeling or a choice?
Yes.
And I think love is a verb, It is.
Oh, absolutely. I think I'm supposed to be the poet between the two of us, but I think even earlier when you said something about like quality time, about like nurturing and stuff, I was like, I'm okay not being the primary poet of today's team. But I think not only that, understanding how they understand love to help them feel loved, but also it takes understanding how they are trying to love you, right?
Absolutely.
Because they also may have that gap where they're trying to make you feel loved, but
Absolutely.
because that's not your love language, you don't realize either.
Yeah. And to just learn to, identify it. So, I understand now. Some people feel pushed. You don't have to do that for me, but it's that person's need to show you love in that way.
So true. You
Just acknowledge it.
acknowledge it and like be open to people showing you love in ways that you don't express love, I think was the biggest take back for me.
Absolutely.
So that was my first question. I thought the second question for this section, which I think is important, is what are attachment styles? I in fact have attached over here, if you can see. That's the
I
attached
love
book.
the book. Yeah. Attachment styles. When we're growing up, when we're babies, we are not able to do much on our own.
Yes.
And we are very dependent on our primary caregivers, whether that's your mother or your father or somebody in that role who is responsible for your growth, safety, nurturing.
Providing you.
Yeah, providing you and just taking care of you because you are really unable to. And that relationship that you have with your primary caregivers in those very, foundational few years, forms an internal working model that we have to view the world. How present was your parent? How did they respond when you reacted in certain ways? And that kind of is a map that we use from without knowing it for all other relationships in our life as we proceed.
It
And I think
becomes the prototype, right? That we apply everything else
absolutely.
against,
It's
ideally.
a structure. Yeah.
Very
And I think it's
interesting.
very important because I think earlier you were talking about, I'm sorry, I keep going back and I
No,
keep going
please,
back to the
please.
earlier section. But I think there's such a link to be made between also loving yourself before loving others. It's such a necessary condition to fully love another is to know yourself, to love yourself, to put yourself in a space where you really you can be known, and that comes from knowing yourself.
Absolutely.
So I think you were talking about we were talking about the inner critic, and we were talking about the unconditional acceptance, and there are these two types of love, the conditional and the unconditional. So a mother's love in what we've read in books and society and culture is unconditional in that sense. It's not dependent on you. There's positive regard no matter what. You are great. And there is a distinction that some psychologists have drawn between a father's love, which is when you do this, then you will receive my kind of acceptance.
It's conditional almost.
Absolutely. And that is the difference between the critic and the
the inner, the like almost
two parts.
cheerleader, the duality of both, right?
Yeah, they're archetypes. They are the ways in which you you're balancing between the two, and sometimes we get more drawn towards one.
That's, I think, when I learned about attachment styles, I think for me the first thing was understanding that each relationship in my life has a different attachment style, because there's a different amount of maybe security I feel, a different amount of safety I feel. Would you just run us through the three basic attachment styles, just so they have a place to begin?
Yeah. So there is secure, where you feel comfortable enough to explore. You feel like you are taken care of. There is anxious, which is you are constantly looking for. There's secure, anxious. There are many types actually.
Okay, my bad.
Secure, anxious, avoidant, dismissive, and disorganized. And so there are many types, and I would encourage everybody to kind of read up on it, because it is quite complex to delve into also.
Yes. Absolutely. And I feel like this is the kind of thing you apply to each relationship. You study your relationships extensively to understand it. Someone was asking earlier if there was a book. There is a book called Attached that is just about attachment styles. And it explores not only the different kind of attachment styles, but explains how you can have successful, constructive relationships with people irrespective of the attachment styles, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, sorry, I could not.
I was just saying that the book Attached explores not only the different attachment styles, but also explores how you can have constructive and healthy relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
Irrespective of what your attachment style is.
Absolutely. Everything can be, explored and kind of understood. And it's just, therapy is also the process of bringing to light a lot of things about yourself. And that insight is what helps us to, move ahead in our journeys.
Which is, even what Drishti was saying earlier, that all of this is information. It's teaching us so much about ourselves, about how we respond to, external stressors and external things. And it's about checking in, asking yourself, asking those questions. One of the other questions...
And nothing is deterministic, It's not like it's set in stone that because of this experience, I'm going to be this way. Nothing is set in stone.
And we usually think that way, right?
Yeah.
We're like, because of A, B is the natural result.
Absolutely.
But there are every decision, and not only decision, every person is dynamic. They have multiple facets to themselves. There can be multiple outcomes that, result. So it's about understanding when to silence that inner critic, I'm assuming. And also knowing yourself, knowing how to express your love, understand that love. We have another incredible question. I think this goes hand in hand with love languages. Someone asked, how do I understand if someone else is attempting to love me? Right? I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Understanding
their... attempting to love you.
Yeah. So understanding their love language, of how they express it, I would assume.
Absolutely. And just, I think being present to them and their behaviors, and, it is experienced. So actually you would know in your experience of that behavior. And of course you can have, you can ask, but there are different ways in which people show love. So if there is any ambiguity about what kind of love this is, well, that that is something that you can get clarity on. But how, if somebody is attempting to love you, I think you would know in the experience of it. Or
Yeah. And how it makes you feel, right?
Hmm.
So we have a question where someone has asked, I'm queer.
Hmm.
How do I bring up my sexuality with the girl I'm into? So I don't know much about this person's pronouns. All of these are submitted anonymously, but I'm given to understand that this is a person with she her pronouns asking about talking to another woman about this. So what would you suggest?
I know it can be kind of tricky when I wanted to understand a little bit, are they unsure about, the person that they're into, their sexuality?
This is all we have going. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so I'm not quite sure. I think maybe I think the question is, I'm queer. How do I bring up my sexuality with the girl I'm into? So maybe we can approach it in terms of maybe this girl we don't know her sexuality. So maybe it's just about like conversing it with them. How would you suggest is a good way to start this conversation?
I would say, being really assessing for yourself, what is a good way to bring it up, a way in which that you can be honest and ask them and let them know about how you are feeling, and yet know that there is possibility that they may or may not reciprocate,
Yeah.
and that does not say anything about you.
Yeah, not taking it personally.
Absolutely.
I wish I
Absolutely.
heard this like 8 years ago. The way I've internalized like rejection in my life has been such a personal like battle. But I think being able to like acknowledge it now is like helping me assess things a little differently. But I remember being young and, having someone not liking me back and thinking that it's, they're more telling of me than it is of them.
And that is such a societal, I mean, it's such a it's not to do with you,
Yeah.
there is a backdrop, there's a context to this whole thing, and that is what is important to remember also.
So true. In fact, this takes me back to one of my favorite chick flicks. It's called He's Just Not That Into You. Where it's the one thing when we girls were talking about guys and all, sometimes it's about telling a friend, he's just not into you. That's it. That's it. It's not that he had a bad breakup. It's not that it's this. It doesn't have to be, some other big stressor. It can just be that maybe they're not compatible. Maybe you're just not what they're looking for. And
And
it's
it, I
about
mean,
disassociating that from yourself, right?
yeah, and it can be a difficult experience, even to be in that place where you don't know how to approach it, or you don't know whether or not, your interests will be reciprocated. And to just hold that in mind, knowing that, if that happens, well, um, this is not it. There is a whole lot more, and there are many ways to kind of also process it for yourself.
Absolutely. And I think, over that, I think very often we're given to imagine that it's us, you know? It's the most common like thinking we go to. It's the first thing we think, right? And especially like I spoke about this earlier, we are so used to thinking about ourselves this much, because we're thinking about how we're being perceived, we're thinking about what is causing that. I think, one of the biggest moments in therapy for me was when she told me that I will be happier once I get comfortable being misunderstood, because not everyone will come from the same experiences as I have. Not everyone will think the same thing is good intent or bad intent. People have different values and different morals. The quicker I allow people to think differently than how I think of myself, the easier it will be for me to focus on how do I think about myself, which is, I think, what's most important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and what you said, being comfortable with not being seen the way that you want to be seen,
Yeah.
that is the basis of, also, that it's liberating to know that you can't control everybody's minds. You can't possibly go into their minds and make them see you a certain way and think of you in
Yeah.
only positive light and all of that. And it's sad, but on the other hand, it's also liberating, because then you know that there are things that then you become comfortable setting boundaries and saying, you know what, I'm not okay with certain things.
Yeah.
And this I'm doing just so we can have a better relationship. I'm not doing it to wall you out.
Yeah. This is
I'm not
when
doing it to.
we're on the same page.
Absolutely.
And Aisha, I feel like it's so important, being able to realize that, like, people, like, realistically, I haven't liked every single person I've met in my life. Isn't it a little bit foolish of me to expect every person that has ever met me to like me? I'd say it's unrealistic.
Yeah.
um, this is, I think, a really lovely question. Someone said,
I do think, just to go back to that, this is a very unique stressor to queer people, is not knowing whether or not, the person that they like, because everybody is not, a lot of people are not talking about it openly, because unfortunately we live in this world which is heteronormative, and
yeah,
the ideal of love is marriage
man
and
and
children
woman.
and man
Yeah,
woman, and
yeah.
it's so it is a very unique and difficult, I guess. I mean, I know, difficult place to be in, but just to know that there are spaces of support that you can find,
100%.
especially now when there is so much talk that's happening. There is so much being done in organizations and institutions at different levels to have those safe spaces of support where you can meet people, where you can talk about these
So true.
you know
And the
these
lovely
stress
thing
over.
about technology is that these communities have even translated online.
Yeah,
I see even agents of Ishq that are so, like, this Instagram
absolutely.
page where they're so, like, sex positive, they're so queer positive. These
Yeah.
places, I was thinking, because of the pandemic, if people wanted to explore, there are a lot of places you can explore even online
Uh,
that help create that space.
Pause for Perspective is a mental health
Okay.
organization that also has queer support groups, which are at very nominal prices. And, there is a list of queer affirmative counseling practitioners, the
Oh,
queer
okay.
affirmative therapists. And so all these resources are available.
It's
Uh,
about venturing out and finding
yeah,
it.
and also finding spaces of support, if not in these. I mean, we went into the therapeutic space, but if not just there,
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to
Even
say.
within your support system,
Hmm.
even within your life, there are people that will give you that capacity and will give you that space to be yourself, right? But it's about giving them a chance to do
and
that for you.
and to do it at your own pace. I think it's very important to not do anything that you don't feel comfortable, safe, and it's not self-paced.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Someone has asked, how do I show love during the pandemic, given the fact that there is distance between us and technology only enables so much?
I know. It's very
We
difficult.
spoke about this earlier with even just being able to not
Yeah.
hug, someone you're seeing.
Yeah.
There are ways that, like, these love
Travel
languages
to.
have
Mm,
translated
and
online and technologically, but this in itself
yeah,
is an own, like, we're exploring it ourselves.
it's tough. I know, it's we are all feeling the lack of it. There is a deprivation, and even the quality of our relationships, we're all waiting for the pandemic to just one day miraculously disappear. But in the meantime, there is technology, like you said. People are watching movies together on Netflix party, and we're constantly on FaceTime. Small thoughtful things. You can have a ritual of connection, doing something at the same time during the day,
So true.
making each other part of your routine in some small ways, giving updates as and when you feel like there is something happening, and just
To
keeping that
share.
communication flowing, to take up a new hobby. There's so many online things happening now that there
Yeah.
is no physical space in which you have to, if you're doing singing together or XYZ, anything that you and your partner feel like, okay, well, this is a
Exploring
good day.
online together, right?
Hmm.
I think that's a really great place to start, if nothing else. Like, find ways to communicate with each other, make each other feel present as much as y'all can, even if the distance is a problem. Honestly, for me, my mom's away. Small things like even her just telling me, like sending me a photo of her lunch, makes me feel like, okay, so she's thinking about me. B, she wants to share that she had something. Maybe she'll add a comment about it. It just makes me feel like I know a little bit about her, even though she may not be here.
Yeah.
The last question I'm going to ask you is, before we see if the chat has any question. Um, wow, actually, we have quite a few submissions here. Let me just see. How do we argue effectively with love? Which I think is such a great question, because not everyone's going to be on the same page when you are in a relationship, in any relationship in your life. How do you argue with love?
Argue with love or with loved ones, or with loved ones?
With loved ones, ideally.
I mean, a lot of people think that conflict is bad. So when you start, there's a negative connotation attached to fighting, to having disagreement. Nahi. Either we try to align our interests with that person, or it means the end of the world, that this has to end and we have to separate and we're not going to be on the same page and I hate that person. And it doesn't have to be that way. There is a way. Actually, what conflicts allow is an exploration of each other, because it tells you something about the other person.
Like, it teaches you something, right?
Like Drishti said, that is also information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, this person is not okay with this. It allows for setting boundaries. It allows for you to assert your needs and say, hey, this is what I need right now, and I'm not getting that, and maybe that's why I'm feeling XYZ way.
Okay, absolutely. So I think take it as, I like what I'm learning is, I shouldn't take it personally. See what is upsetting this person. Where is it coming from?
And be open to talk about it. There is a lot of times what happens is the problem gets left in the lurch when we start blaming and arguing. And there is one thing that really is helpful to me also personally, is when I don't use blaming language. So I would avoid saying, you did that, and this is why we're here, and XYZ. And I would say, well, I feel sad when we state what happened, XYZ, when this happened, and I would rather that we do this. So you're suggesting an alternative, and it's just that kind of structure that we can use in different situations when we're in a conflict, that this is how the best I can do is just tell you about what I need, and the rest,
like, navigate through that emotion, right? Understand what is birthing it, what is a consequence of you feeling this way. Maybe sometimes it reminds you of a different situation where you felt this emotion, but it's about being able to communicate that. I remember one of those, like when I started following a lot of these like couple therapists, one of the things they said is that when arguing, try to use you less and me and I more. So you can, because you will know how you feel and your intention better than the other person's.
Yeah.
And it's about presenting it as a question and not making those assumptions, right? I think very often we don't assume positive intent in every relationship.
Absolutely.
I think that, honestly, I think that's something I struggle with. I'm so scared that when I love someone, that they have the absolute power of making me like feel horrible. So I'm always so scared that like they will use that. But I need to know, if I'm loving someone and I'm giving them a chance to make me feel like this, I'm trusting them with that. And there has to be a base of understanding, a base of respect, a base of love. And only then can I feel safe and not experience that kind of that kind of emotion where I'm scared in a relationship. I'm scared because of the emotions this person makes me feel.
Yeah, and I think, Ananya, what you touched on is the aspect of being vulnerable. It's an act of courage,
100%.
To be vulnerable is actually trusting somebody to be in a position to inflict hurt and knowing that it is something that, can be worked on and cannot, that you're trusting this person that you will most probably not do it. Or if you do it, we will find a way through it.
Or knowing that you can do this, but I'm hoping you don't. I'm
Yeah.
giving you a chance to show me you won't.
Mm.
Prove me wrong, almost, you know.
Mm.
Um, I was just going to cover this because I feel like this is an important question, and then we can wrap the session up.
Mm.
So this person has said, I'm worried about telling my girlfriend I used to date a guy, but no longer feel the urge to date men.
Mm.
How do I discuss past sexual relationships with partners? And how do I know what to disclose and what not to disclose? So it's something I feel like, Aisha, I've struggled with this in my relationship as well, where
Mm.
I want to be open with my partners, but you never know how someone may internalize something
Mm.
that's not even about them. And
Mm.
I can tell you out of experience, I've taken things that have happened in, my partner's life, and I've been in relationships before, which have nothing to do with me, but I'll find a way to make it about myself because I want
Mm.
to feel bad. And very
Mm.
often when we're looking for things, we'll find a way to do it.
Mm.
So I think this question is asking you that that thin line between being open but also knowing where to make that boundary of what you're okay to
Mm.
discuss and what you're not okay to discuss.
Mm. And um, how much you're okay to discuss,
Hmm.
how much of what you want to say, how will it is, you are the best judge in the relationship to know, what the dynamic is, how is your relationship otherwise, what is the context in which this is happening. And if you do open up to this person, um, just stating, being vulnerable and honest in your sharing and bringing up the reason for saying it, letting them
Hmm.
know why I'm saying this.
Yeah.
Uh, and like I said, giving them, a way forward. And I would like to share this with you for this reason.
Yeah. Being like,
Would
this is the
Yeah,
purpose, this is the intent of why I'm telling you about this certain thing.
absolutely. And then to kind of navigate it together. If there is something that comes up, having an honest conversation about it, bringing it to light rather than avoiding it and not talking about it, or saying, well, this is not something that I can or should, or yeah.
Explore. So yeah, I think as you said, like the great place to start is like being acknowledging what you're comfortable like talking about and discussing
Yeah, for yourself.
for
Yeah, first
yourself
of all.
with your like own safety, comfort in mind, and then just communicating about it openly, leaving space for like them to respond, explaining why you're bringing this up, right,
Yeah,
is a good place to go.
yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Aisha. I feel
I,
like this entire session, even Drishti's, even yours, I feel like I'm so happy this is like on stream. So otherwise I would just be taking notes right now. So thank
but
you so much. Please,
thank
like
you
if you
so much
have,
for having me. And I think, but I do want to give a disclaimer that all the questions that we've had very specifically about your relationships, although I may have spoken
yeah,
surface level about them, we don't know enough,
yeah.
and
We
it
don't know
is
the specifications, the
absolutely. So
details.
don't take it, at face value. Kind of process
Yeah,
it for yourself, see what works.
yeah,
If you have access to networks of support, professional help if you need, and just have space to think about it. So I would encourage that,
yeah. Don't
because
just
I know,
blindly apply it, right?
yeah,
Got it. Thank you so much. This has been so lovely, honestly. And I'm loving how people are just responding to what you're saying. So much of like these questions are questions either I've had or have been things I've struggled with. So thank you for your perspective and thank you for being so kind, even with approaching these questions. And chat, if you've enjoyed this and you want to follow Aisha, her Instagram handle is on chat. You can, send in comments of love, support, and also just learn about this more from her page. Thank you so much for being here. Forever
thank you so
indebted.
much.
Thank
No,
you.
I'm so happy we had a date today on Valentine's.
Absolutely. All of us.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you,
Thank
Aisha. Thank you. Uh, okay. Give me a second. I'm just going to bring Dr. Tanya in. Until I do that, I thought I would just introduce this a little. Um, I'm just gonna add her in. Um, so we're finally on our last session. Which is making love. So for making love, I have a few pieces of literature that we can approach before we start, any of these, before we start our final session with Dr. Tanaya. So this is by Agents of Ishq. I'm just going to confirm. Hi, Dr. Tanaya. Would you be able to
Hi.
flip your camera because
Yes.
you're on? Because it's
I'll just do that in 1 second.
no stress. I'm just going to introduce this session before we begin. So you have a minute or two to set up. Don't stress about it. So, since we're on our final session, which is making love, which is also an important part of expressing love. And for this, I have a little bit of literature to share about this. Also, in case I want to, reach out to any of the professionals that are on this session, all of their handles are on the chat. So feel free to go support, feel free to, show them love, show them appreciation. They've taken time out on this incredible Sunday to help us learn a little bit more. And the most incredible thing is these people, all of them have proper jobs, but they're still doing this just so a few of us can learn how to love better. They're definitely going to heaven, if anything.
I'm so sorry for the delay on that note. I got stuck in traffic and I thought it was never going to end and I would never make it, but I made it in time.
Please don't stress. Please don't stress. I'm still about to put you on the layout so you'll be visible. I just want to read them the literature before we started. I had something short planned. So the first piece I'm reading you is it has been posted by Agents of Ishq that are very sex positive and queer positive. And this is a poem they made during their masturbation May. And it goes, it's by Ariba Iftikhar. I love her. She thinks to herself. Her breathing becoming heavier with every second that passes by, she bites her lower lip. Doing that every time, unconsciously hitting the waves, rising underneath layers and layers of cloth she adorns. Self-doubt takes over. What if I'm not good at this? Replaced by the slickness of spreading down under, she takes control. Sighing, moaning, she takes all the control. Pushing all that self-loathing back, all that self-doubt, she takes control. Her own pleasure rising and falling, her breath, the pearl of sweat, down her temples, those fingers. A beautiful composition playing itself, stroke after stroke, concluding with more sighing. Tiny, lazy circles around her center like the calm after a storm. And a self-assured smile. So this is one of the ways that you can make love, where you can make love to yourself. And another little example is by this poet called Michael Faudet. This piece is called Undress Me. All that you write, it's not right. You move me with written suggestion. I know it's absurd to be undressed by a word. Write me more, make me yours. This is by Michael Faudet. So for our final session, we're going to be exploring, understanding, making love to ourselves or to others. And to help us understand this a little bit more, we have Dr. Tanya who's going to be joining us. Some of you might know her better as Dr. Cuteris. And I thought I'd introduce you to a little bit about her. And I loved her little informal introduction, so I thought I would read that out. Want to put the fun in fundamental sex education? Say hello to an Oxford-trained doctor who talks all about sexual health on the interwebs. Dr. Tanya, aka the award-winning Dr. Cuteris, does fun myth-busting, talks about taboo topics, and says screw the shush. Dr. Tanya is an internationally trained medical doctor, embryologist, and a scientist who is extremely passionate about medical education and on the more nerdy side of things. Is an elected fellow of the Royal Society of Public Health. Tanya, we're so happy we got you. I understand that there was some delay and the chat can finally see you, but we're so happy to have you here. We had incredible sessions with Ayesha and with Drishti where we explored how to love ourselves and how to love others. And now we're on to, I'd say, a little bit more of the fun part. We're at the let's talk about sex, baby section. But some of these are sex related, some of these are not. So we have a few questions. If I'm, just a heads up, if I'm mispronouncing something, please tell me. I feel like you are more equipped to let me know than I am myself. And the chat, if you have any questions you would like to contribute, you want to send, if you'd like to send them anonymously, we have a little form that's available where you can send in your questions. Or if you want to send them on chat, even that works. So the first question we have, this was, so when I put up the form, it was late at night. First few questions were more like theory based. And the first question I saw about love, I'm assuming, is from a man or a boy. And he has said, how can I have sex with my girlfriend on her period? She's shy about me seeing her blood.
All right. So thank you so much for the lovely introduction once again. I'm Tanya. My name is also known as Dr. Cutress. And thank you so much for having me as a part of this fabulous panel. I'm so excited about everything we're going to talk about. And I'm so sorry about the delay. I got stuck in traffic. But
No stress.
having said that and moving forward, I do know that a lot of people with vulvas, a lot of menstruators feel a lot of shame around having periods and have a lot of shame around having their partners see their periods, which I think is unfounded because it's perfectly all right to have sex on your periods. Just make sure you're using a condom or a dental dam if you're going to have oral sex.
Mm-hmm.
And period blood is not dirty. Period blood is perfectly healthy. It's the same blood that runs right through here. So it's not like it's something disgusting that's coming out of there. And if you want to have sex, go ahead and do it. You don't need to feel any dirtiness around it, which I feel like is the biggest sort of hampering factor when people do want to engage in sex on their period. Having said that, yes, I do understand that for a lot of people, it feels like, you feel uncomfortable, even though you're not dirty. So this is something you can go over with your partner and, discuss and figure out what works for the both of you and go from there.
And it's a good place to like start by just talking about it, right? Like,
Absolutely.
I think for us, like when I imagine, when I think back to the first time I had period sex, I think it was more a mental thing than it was to do with anything physical. It's this idea that no one has really seen our menstrual blood. We don't, even when we see it on mainstream media, it's blue color and it's on some pad or something. Porn doesn't conventionally have, like period blood sex, which I'm sure there is a section of it, but it's not mainstream porn. It's not the porn you see when you open up a website. So honestly, I feel like, we already have a professional here who's going to, give us the facts where it is. But if I was to talk about the feelings, it's more of a mental thing. Communicate with your partner. As we spoke about earlier, being comfortable, being vulnerable like that, just because we're not used to sharing this moment or sharing something like this with others, doesn't mean that you need to hold yourself back from experiencing it. I've also heard, tell me if I'm wrong, I've heard that if you have sex on your period, it helps with cramping. But I don't know if there is.
Absolutely.
Really?
That is very
It's
correct.
for a good cause too.
Orgasms are nature's painkillers. I don't see a reason why there's anything wrong with them.
It's so funny. When I sent all of them an email thread, I got a little delayed because I had a horrible migraine for 2 days. And every time I get a migraine, I look up like migraine remedies online as if it's going to change every month. But one of the things I read was that orgasms help with migraines. And I was on a migraine subreddit where so many women spoke about how they would just rub one out and not have a headache. So, I think there is so much more you can discuss when the shame around sex and masturbation is just deconstructed. When you can approach it as an activity, as when you can approach it as something that people do, which is what, if you see Dr. Cutress's page, like that's essentially what she's trying to help do. Okay, this is a question. I understand that this is a misconception, but I kept it in because of the fact that it is a misconception. If I masturbate too much, will I be less sensitive?
I want to build up with another fact before I get onto this, which is the fact that for most vulva owners or most women, they orgasm from having clitoral stimulation, not from penetration. And I feel like this is something we need to shout from rooftops.
Yes.
Most people most people enjoy rubbing the clit as opposed to bang, 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 bang. Nobody likes that. I mean, some people do, but there are very few people who actually sort of have an orgasm directly from penetration.
Yes.
So when you do think that, oh no, if I use my vibrator too much, I'm never going to be able to orgasm through sex. You're not going to be able to orgasm through sex anyway, because that's not how most people orgasm.
That's true.
So if we sort of bear that in mind and we leave that idea behind that, oh my God, sex is going to get me there.
Yeah.
It automatically takes away the idea that, masturbating will stop you from having orgasms. In fact, masturbation can help you get better orgasms, because then you understand what you like.
Your body better, right?
Exactly. You understand how you like to be touched. You understand what your fetishes are. You understand what turns you on, and then you can guide your partner better, because even if you start off on a wrong foot, you can guide your partner and let them know that this is what I like.
A little more this, a little less that.
Absolutely.
Right.
And have a better sexual relationship.
100%. And also, I think, your life really changes when you explore sexuality by yourself. I think it's something we put very external. It's something we're like, oh, this is something we share with someone. But there is so much strength in being able to bring yourself to orgasm. And more than anything, this is something I love to discuss with women who are comfortable. I'm like, we deserve those orgasms. Why are you denying the orgasm? Which is why I kept this in, because I've thought that before, but resources like these is what helps me learn that this thinking is foolish. If I masturbate or if I, pleasure myself, it is not going to impact my sexual relationship with someone else. If anything, it's going to help me, help them, help me. This I feel like was a question directed specifically at you, given like the content you make and how you approach your social media. What's a misconception about sex you see in mainstream media that frustrates you? One at the top of your head.
From the top of my head, it would be that, clitoral orgasms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way girls scream like 3 seconds in, like they'll have a weird like chadar shot.
As much as I love Sex and the City and their whole, grabbing the sheets thing, it makes me so angry, because they're just like, somebody will go at them and they'll be like,
yeah,
and it'll be done.
Yeah.
What about the fact that that's not how most people have an orgasm?
100%.
It's so misleading, and I felt like I was abnormal for the longest time. I felt like there's something wrong with me, that every film, every TV series I've seen, people have an orgasm through penetration. I'm just like, I will never be able to have an orgasm in front of any partner ever in my whole life.
Yeah,
and that's not true. I was just approaching it wrong.
Absolutely. And I think so often we don't see a lot of porn or mainstream media representation of sex that shows foreplay, which is such an important element of sex, especially if you are if you have a vagina. That there has to be lubrication either naturally or with lube or something. But you will never see someone like pop a lube bottle open, be like, give me a second. You won't see those things, which I feel like is so important, which is,
Absolutely.
I hope with, I see a lot more diverse websites, more women-led organizations trying to make porn. And I hope this is also something they normalize. I like mini celebrate every time I see a man wearing a condom in porn. It's supposed to be,
Oh gosh, yes.
it's supposed to be something that they have as a standard, but it's obviously not. But I'm like, such a small way of showing you care for your coworker as well,
That and I don't think I've ever in my entire life seen a representation of pornography where somebody is wearing a condom or a dental dam for oral sex. Ever. I've never seen that.
Yeah,
I may be
haven't
wrong.
seen
I
that.
know people have seen that differently. Have you not?
I haven't. I've seen like during penetrative sex them using condoms, but I haven't seen during like oral, during foreplay. But I that's the thing, I feel like, I hope as the internet becomes more inclusive, that these things also keep changing. So even recently, how Pornhub decided to put down porn that wasn't put up from verified website channels was definitely a step in the right direction. I think there is already a sense of consent if you are uploading it yourself and you have something to back it up. But I'm looking forward to seeing when I become, say, my mother's age.
Yeah.
What will porn be like then? Will it be more inclusive? Will I get? I honestly, I haven't seen a woman like myself on mainstream porn like website. It's always like white women. It's white
Absolutely.
women who have no hair on their body somehow. You know, and
No
like,
pigmentation on their genitalia for
somehow,
some reason.
somehow. But I'm hoping that's going to change, you know, because I realize that the problem, like, it's not the problem with the women. I think it's the problem with the consumers. We need to change the kind of porn we enjoy. A great website that I think like has been so supportive and of like trying to change this is this website called Belisa, where it's all run by women. There is affirmative consent in every video of theirs. They like, there are sections where you can explore, even if you want to go for something sensual, if you want to go for something hardcore, anything is there. But it's the fact that there is a base level of respect, there are safe words, there is affirmative consent, small things that will make real life sex so much better if we just saw it in porn.
Absolutely.
One question we got is, I hope I'm saying this right, please correct me. Penetration really hurts me, and I'm scared I might have vaginismus. Vaginismus. I don't know how to say it right.
Vaginismus.
Vaginismus.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what would you suggest to someone in this position? Should they reach out to their health professional? What are ways they can explore penetration, other forms of sex, if not penetration? What's a good place to start, you would suggest?
So the thing is that vaginismus is underdiagnosed and overdiagnosed both, which is to say that most healthcare professionals won't know about it, but people who do have an understanding of it will overdiagnose it. I think vaginismus is, by definition, it's something that not painful sex, because there are a billion other reasons why sex can be painful. Vaginismus is when your vaginal muscles just go like this. Dukaan band hai, jao yahan se. Shutter gir gaya hai. That's kind of the way of understanding vaginismus. Agar shutter gir gaya, it's vaginismus, where your muscles just go like, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And there's no opening there anymore. They just clamp shut. On the other hand, when you're sexually aroused, your vagina basically expands and it lubricates and it, makes room inside there to accommodate whatever you want to put inside there. You want to put a penis, you want to put a sex toy, you want to put fingers, whatever you want to put
Whatever it
there.
is.
It will make space for it on its own. Parda apne aap khul jayega, And
yes.
So if somebody is experiencing painful sex per se, I think they need to see their doctor, because there's things like endometriosis that can cause painful sex. There is things like vaginitis, which is inflammation of the vagina from an infection that can cause painful sex. It can be inadequate lubrication that can cause painful sex.
Yes.
Having said that, if there is a condition where nothing goes inside, that would be vaginismus. And vaginismus again comes from a whole bunch of issues like infection and inflammation and psychosexual issues as well. So if you're feeling that sex is uncomfortable, it's painful, you need to see your doctor who can figure out why this is happening for you and then take you along from there.
Absolutely. In fact, I remember like being in this position, but then I found out I was just not like stimulated enough. When your body, in fact, I read this recently that, since like our genitals are made from like the same parts or whatever, like I feel like you would know, like this is layman term. For the chat, like because our bodies are made of like our genitals are made of similar parts, even our clitoris enlarges a little bit when we're aroused. And this is the kind of thing that we would never learn about because we don't like focus on women in health that much. We don't focus on women's sexuality that much. So as she said, like, please explore. There are so many different ways that, that could be causing this. I've also read about how trigger warning, mention of sexual assault, how even like sexual assault can cause, penetration being painful, or, there may be a mental apprehension that comes naturally if you've been in situations where you feel unsafe. So as she said, like, please reach out to a professional. I understand this, like, this habit of being like, I'll just Google it and I'll figure it out. But then you learn about things like vaginismus and you're like, this is what I have and I just can't do it. But like, don't let this hold you back. Figure out what it is. If it is something concerning, there are ways you can go about it. And also, even if that is what you have, from what I understand, there are so many other forms of like sexual relationships you can explore. You can have oral sex. You can have, if it's safe, anal sex. There are so many other forms of intimacy that don't just have to be penetration or penis and vagina. Um, a few people are asking how they can ask questions. Sakshi, if you want to ask them on chat, you can do that. Otherwise, we have a form that's on chat if you want to send it anonymously. Okay, that's a lovely question. So this is the kind of question I feel like me from a few years ago would have. Apeksha has asked, what causes the darkness in private parts or around the inner thighs? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is friction when you are walking and stuff like that, right? Like from your cheeks, the friction against your thighs, the friction between the thighs. And she has asked, how do I get rid of it? Which is, I feel like I understand that question. But when you hear answers like these and you understand where they come from, like we were speaking about, we only, like you said, you see like women with zero pigmentation in porn, so you don't expect this on your body, but real bodies don't look like that, you know. I saw this documentary which was like the behind the scenes. Belissa has this, the behind the scenes of pornos, and in one of them you can see they're putting makeup on their legs.
Yep.
You know how they're preparing for it, what they're eating and stuff, and there's so much that goes into it. It's quite literally a performance. So Apeksha, I'm going to direct this question to Tanya. Let her tell us what she thinks. What causes the darkness in private parts and around the inner thighs?
So you're right in saying that there's a lot of friction that can cause this. And in addition to this, there's also this whole angle of puberty. When we get to puberty, we have hormones. Hormones cause pigmentation. That's it. Any sort of fold of skin that you have, if you look under your breasts, if you look in your armpits, if you look
elbows,
if you look between your thighs, if you look at your elbows,
knees,
all of these areas have darkening. That's a very normal thing. And you have all of these stupid, idiotic, freaking just companies that come and tell you that, oh my God, here's an intimate lightening serum. That doesn't work. It will not work. Your skin will not get lightened from that unless you use actual literal bleach. And I have bleached my inner thighs from being conscious. You know, I had to wear a bikini one time and I was just like, oh my God, everybody's going to think I have ugly thighs. And I bleached myself. And it was stupid because I got a burn. And then I had to go to a dermatologist, which was really not fun, you know, having to tell them that, yeah, so I bleached my inner thighs and now I'm sitting here with a chemical burn.
And over that, can I just say, like, as you said, there are brands that will provide, you know, like different things to like lighten, and they'll have like 20 different ways of saying it, brighten it, lighten it, all of these things. You need to know that like capitalism works on us being insecure. Like they want you to find problems with yourself. They want you to find flaws. But you need to know that there's this amazing subreddit I love called Our Normal Nudes, where no one is trying to pose in a way that makes them look too, you know, like sexual or sensual. It's just showing bare bodies as they are. You see people's stretch marks, you see their body rolls, you see like pigmentation, you see scars. It just shows you that these are the kind of bodies that, you know, we need to normalize, but instead we get what we get right now, you know. So in case anyone here is like insecure about your body, irrespective of your gender, check out Our Normal Nudes. These people just share photos and they just discuss their bodies in a way that is like every person there, irrespective of how they look, doctor. They like they people cheer them on. They'll find things. Someone will say, "Oh, this looks so beautiful," and they'll be like, "Oh, I never thought about that." Or, you know, sometimes someone will join and they'll post a photo saying, "Oh, I've really been insecure about my small breasts." Or someone will, or a man will post and he'll say, "I don't like how my penis aligns to a certain direction." And that people will find a way to not only help them understand whatever's causing it, or but B, help them appreciate it from a perspective or a lens they've never seen before. Which is why I feel like, I'm so curious about how sex and porn will evolve through the years as we have more people coming in, as we have more people willing to do it. Even this idea of like OnlyFans coming in, it's really
Yeah.
creating this niche. Like, well, so far, even sex work to a certain extent online is primarily the creme de la creme. It's you are the Eurocentric type. If not, you are a niche, you are a topic, you are a tag,
You're
you
a
are a
fetish.
genre, a fetish,
Yeah.
right? But small things like this are going to change that so much, hopefully.
Absolutely.
So this is a really lovely question I got. Someone asked me. So I don't know if this is within your area of practice, but I think you will still be more equipped to answer this than I would. How do I communicate to my partners about my erectile dysfunction and convince them that it's not because of them that I can't get it up?
I feel like erectile dysfunction is an area that sort of makes people feel so insecure that conversations in themselves become so hard that sometimes they don't happen. And this is where you have to have a better understanding of why this is happening to you in the first place before you can communicate it to another person.
Yes.
So find a doctor who can break it down for you, make you understand it, and take away the stigma and the shame from your own body. Once you're accepting of your own body, and I do realize that this is a journey, this is not something that you arrive at one day, you're like, oh, I accept my body. It's not going to happen like that.
Yeah.
It's a journey, and that journey can be made a part of your partner's journey with understanding your body as well. So it's so important that you do let your partner know why this is happening and how this is happening. And even if it is happening because you're not feeling aroused enough or whatever have you, it's not your partner's fault and it's not your fault. And this is something that has to be communicated so effectively and so often, as opposed to just being like, this is a one-time conversation.
Yeah.
A lot of times partners do need constant reassurance, and that's not to take away from the fact that somebody who has erectile dysfunction will have insecurity issues in and of themselves. This has to be something that keeps happening again and again, so the both of you can feel at ease about this.
And communicating just makes things so much easier. So when I've been
Absolutely.
with partners that have also had experiences like this, maybe they'll say, oh, I've had too much to drink, and maybe that's why this is not working. Or they'll say, that's too much on my mind, that's why this is not working. But it's about being able to create that capacity of a conversation, capacity of letting them communicate that to us. So I think it's just about being kind to when things like this happen, right? I understand the tendency to take it personally, but I think it's the same thing. It's like how like we go like this, there's this understanding that women lie about orgasms, and it's because there is this conventional idea that sex is only completed when both partners both or all partners orgasm or come. But the matter of the fact is, sex is not just like about reaching completion. Some people can possibly never orgasm with a partner because they just, someone may just not understand their body that way. But that doesn't mean that wasn't sex. Some people aren't comfortable orgasming with other people. Like, I know friends of mine who can only orgasm maybe multiple times, but only when they're by themselves. They're not ready to be vulnerable with someone else like that. So there are so many like facets that come into it. And it's just about being able to like communicate that, and also break like stop this idea that only after completion, like this idea of completion in itself, I think is flawed. Like, sex can go on even after partners may finish. Sex can be only like, can be only oral sex, can be only a certain type of sex. But I think, as she also suggested, communicate. That just helps both of y'all be on the same page. It allows both of y'all to be kind, be there for each other, and also not internalize things that really aren't about you.
Very true.
Right? We have a question which says, will using sex toys have any negative effects on me?
I mean, you have to make sure that the sex toys you're using are sort of safe to use. You're using silicone-based toys. I do not recommend things like jade eggs and all, because they have holes in them. That means they can allow bacteria to live and essentially have a party in there. You don't want that inside you. And you want to have smooth surfaces, things like silicone toys, things like plastic toys that are very smooth.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the only way things can get unsafe. And if you're going to be having anal sex, you want to have a toy that is flared at the bottom. That means
Yes.
the bottom is
A
spread
flared base,
out a
right?
bit more. Absolutely. So the width of the bottom is thicker, is more than that of the bum hole.
Yes.
Because if the width is this much and the bum hole is this much, it won't get sucked in. It will
Yes.
stop eventually on its own. But
Yes.
if you stick a pencil up your butt, you can have it sucked in all the way up inside you, and then have to go to the emergency room, and that's an uncomfortable conversation. I understand that.
100%. And we've heard horror stories about it for sure. So also, in
I
case
have
you
seen
want to
horror
know
stories
more,
about it for sure.
100%. I was just gonna say, in case any of you are curious about anal sex, Dr. Cuterus has a whole highlight, I think, if I'm not mistaken, about primarily anal sex. So please educate yourself about it, because if it's not done right, it can be painful. There has to be you have to prepare, since the ass doesn't your asshole doesn't naturally lubricate itself. There has to be some form of lubricant, and if you're using certain type of condoms, there have to be certain kind of lubricants used, because they may not mix well. So please really educate yourself about it. I think one of the biggest things I say is read about sex when you're not horny,
Oh yeah.
without the perspective of how do I get off to this, more like what is this, how can I explore it, what are ways to explore it yourself. Otherwise, so we've got more questions. So someone's asked something interesting. Wait, let me just find it. Okay. I can never orgasm while having intercourse with my boyfriend. I feel like I hold myself back sometimes, but sometimes I don't really feel a sexual drive. Is that a reason? Could this be asexuality? I understand that you prefer not to explore this a lot, because I think neither of us are properly equipped.
Yeah.
But is there any other reason that this person may not feel comfortable orgasming with their partner?
There's a lot of stigma associated with having an orgasm in front of your partner, particularly for vulva owners, because when you're having sex, it's a lot about, is he enjoying this? Am I
looking good? So
Yeah.
true.
Is he looking at my tits? Do my tits fall to the sides? Is that ugly?
Yeah.
Is my orgasm face ugly? And there's so much focus on making sure the experience is good for your partner, instead of thinking of how much you're enjoying it, that it takes away a lot from the experience of enjoying sex overall. So this is something that can be a huge factor that can stop you from thoroughly enjoying sex. Having said that, there's of course things like not being able to not having interest in sex, which is completely all right,
which is completely normal.
Yeah, but I'm not very equipped to talk about it, so I don't want to
That's
sort of
fair.
give
Yeah.
unfair information on that.
Absolutely. And we'd also rather say less than say something that's wrong.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I'm just gonna end this saying that there's a lot of facets that can be, why this is happening. I think a great place to start is even just communicating it with your partner and helping them understand it's. I think, sometimes with dudes it tends to get on their ego, but being we can do this together, we can figure this out, whatever it is, even if it's asexuality, there are still ways to be intimate even if you're not having sex.
I feel like there's 4 ways of having great sex. There's consent, there's communication, there is condoms, and there is making sure there's enough lube. If you have these 4 things down, sex becomes so much better and easier.
It's great that you mentioned condoms, because one of the questions someone asked me was to ask you about the different contraceptive methods in India, and the different ways they can have safe sex. So you've already mentioned condoms and dental dams. In case you're curious, that you can also I have a little pictorial on my Instagram of how you can make a dental dam with a condom, in case you don't have access to dental dams that you can purchase. But when it comes to birth control methods in India, what are our options? Does it affect our fertility at a later age? What should we know about that?
I want to preface this with saying the fact that safe sex doesn't mean sex that doesn't get you pregnant. Safe sex means sex that doesn't give you an STI.
STI, yes.
And this is a very common misconception. You know, people are
Yes.
like, "What are your safe days?" This is not what safe means.
No, absolutely.
So that's why condoms and dental dams are so important. And the different methods available in India, you can have things like being on the contraceptive pill, which also has non-contraceptive benefits. You can have an implant inside you in your arm, and you can have an intrauterine device, which is essentially a little T-shaped thing that goes inside your uterus. Now, here's a problem, which is that a lot of doctors don't recommend IUDs and implants for people who've never given birth. And I kind of stand on that side as well. Of course, it's the person's choice, you know, it's their body, their choice at the end of the day. But implants sometimes take a little bit longer for your fertility to return. So an implant is like a tiny little needle-based thing that sits inside your arm over here. It takes a minor surgery to fit it inside your arm.
Yes.
It lasts for 3 months, and then, you know, you can keep getting it replaced. But for a lot of people, it takes a little bit longer for your fertility to return, for your regular periods to return. So
is that the case with pills as well?
Not with pills. Pills generally have an immediate return to fertility.
Okay.
But there's a clause here that you're not supposed to have pills continuously for a very long time. If you're on the pill for, say, 5 years, you need to have a pill-free break every
really?
6 months or so.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so anytime a doctor is prescribing you pills, they will give you a pill-free break every 6 months or so, so that your body is kind of reset on its own natural path, as opposed to being I don't like to say synthetic.
Yeah.
Because it gives
But
a very bad
it's the additional hormones that come
Yeah.
with it.
It's the supportive thing. So instead of like your body gets time to get away from the support and see how it's reacting on its own. Aside from this, you know, you have IUDs, which we don't recommend to people who've never given birth, because while IUDs are extremely safe, you know, there's like a 99% risk of there's like a 99% chance of not having a pregnancy, because you don't have to remember to take a pill or anything of that sort. It also increases your chances of getting an ectopic pregnancy, which is a pregnancy that doesn't implant in your uterus. It implants outside of your uterus, which can get complicated. So yeah, unless you are in a stable relationship with just one partner and you're not thinking of a child for the next 5 years, I won't recommend an IUD.
Wouldn't suggest that. But like, as always, as much as, you know, we're learning through this, every person's, you know, health profile is different. Please talk to your medical professional about this. We have one professional. I'm just streaming. Please don't take, you know, my
I'm just here
word.
to give you gyan.
Yeah, exactly.
How that gyan applies on your body is different.
Yeah. Even how Ayesha said that, you know, don't just blindly apply it. Look specific to your case. Look specific to your profile, your life. This is an interesting question I got. And this is something I haven't heard much about either. Squeezing legs together to orgasm. Why is it that people don't talk much about it, and is it bad?
That was the first way I orgasmed myself, you know. There's so many people who orgasm that way, and so many people whose natural response if you're stimulating the clitoris is to squeeze their legs together. And that's because the pressure on the clitoris helps people have an orgasm. Having said that, we like to pretend that a woman has an orgasm by going like this and like having and this is bullshit.
Then it's like fireworks in the back, or like a little band starts playing music. But yeah, absolutely, you're so true. And you know, I'm so surprised that maybe I don't know it, but I'm so surprised there's no term for this, because you know, so many, like, there are jokes about it online where girls are like, legs together, boys won't get this, or you know, small things like that. I'm like, this is clearly something that happens often. This is clearly a cultural thing, but we never discuss it and explore it. Like, we all know about, like, we know quite enough about you know, penis owners' relationship with masturbation, because it ends up being such conventional conversation. It's because it's so normalized for sexuality to be explored as a male owner, but there's so much hush about it. As you said, screw the shush and like discuss this stuff. Um, so, okay, is condom sufficient for safe sex, or birth control pill is still required? Which is takes us back to your question that safe sex is about STIs, right? Which is why I think you would even suggest that if we're giving oral, we should use some form of protection as well, because STIs and STDs can still transfer with oral. But if you were to answer this question, if someone came to you saying, I want to have safe sex with keeping in mind the pregnancy aspect, avoiding the formation, but also at the same time avoiding STIs and STDs, what would be your like suggestion, a good place to
And
start?
so condoms are the only contraceptive that have protection against STIs. So there's that on the first hand. And with perfect use, condoms have a 98% efficiency rate.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect use means you put it on correctly, you put it on before you insert
At the right
your penis in
time.
your partner at all,
Yeah.
absolutely. And things of that sort. So if you're using it correctly according to the instructions, condoms are good enough.
Okay.
Of course, there's a failure with everything. That's
Yeah.
how everything in the world works. If you're going to get fucked, you're going to get fucked. So, things can
Quite
go wrong.
literally. I saw the chance and I took it. But yeah, great place to start, like, and it's important to say that because, I think our conventional idea of safe sex very often is just like not getting pregnant. But, like even in my school, I remember kids in my school became sexually active at a very young age. Okay. And I came from a place where I had like my parents who were very like open to talking about sex and open to discussing these things. So it gave me a sense of, oh, I could discuss this with them if and when it came to it. But a lot of my friends didn't have that agency. And very often they would not use any protection, and then the girl would just take plan like after sex pill or a plan B pill. What kind of effects could that have on your body at a later time?
So actually, there's no long-term side effects of having emergency contraception. But having said that, it does throw a lot of heavy hormones at you that you don't want, and that can interrupt your regular cycle, that can interrupt your regular ovulation. But that is still not to say that you're going to become infertile if you have these pills. That's not going to happen. But
Okay.
it's the same thing as instead of using a small dose of medication on something, you just like, instead of using a pistol at this sort of invader inside your house, you use a machine gun and you're like, I'm going to nuke them. And you throw a nuclear
Yeah.
bomb at them. It's kind of doing the same thing.
The full force is in,
Yeah, basically
and it's
that.
important to be mindful of like your body as well, like as you said, like this can, especially if you're someone like a menstruator, this can affect your period cycle depending on when you take it. Someone has said that most probably going to lose my virginity tomorrow, so thank you for the condom advice. And over that, someone had submitted a question saying, I'm going to have sex for the first time on Valentine's Day, which is today, so what should I know before I do it?
Condoms, consent, communication, and lube.
And lube.
This is my 4-step path to great sex.
the four people that have to be present. The 4 elements that have to be there.
I just need like a C word for lube, and then it'll be the 4 C's, the Dr. Cutress's 4 C's for great sex.
Yeah, we'll think of something. Let me just see if there's any other question. Oh, okay, you're back.
Oh, sorry. Yes, my battery was turning down.
No worries. We're almost done anyway. I'm just gonna ask you one last question, and then we can wrap up for today. Okay. How do I discuss my sexual life with my gynecologist? I think this is something all of us have spoken a lot about, and I know you've also covered this on your page. But if you are sexually active, how should you bring it up? What are things you should bring up? Because I think sometimes, depending on the case, it's not only enough to bring up that you're sexually active. Sometimes it takes, if you're into certain things, bringing that up. How do you have that conversation?
I feel like this is a difficult conversation to have in the first place, simply because there's so many doctors in our country that are not sex positive, that do shame you, and this is a barrier to accessing good health. That you will have a doctor that might shame you, but you have to be very persistent in the fact that this is important to me, and this is something I'm doing. You have to make sure that if you're sexually active, you tell your doctor about it. If you are in a same-sex relationship, you tell your doctor about it. That's the way your medications are structured to you. It changes. If you're in a same-sex relationship, there's not a very high likelihood that you will have emergency contraception. I mean, I don't see a reason why you would have to do that. But your doctor needs to know that, and your doctor needs to understand why you're making certain decisions in your life and why you're making certain health decisions. So you need to find a doctor that is supportive, or if not supportive, at least listens to you. And when they do listen to you, you need to tell them that, I'm sexually active, and this is what I'm using as a safe sex method, and this is what I'm using for contraception. And it's very vital that one does that, even though it's a very difficult conversation to have. I do
But it's an
appreciate
important conversation, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Especially when it comes to your health. I feel like that's one place you really should not compromise on. It's such a cheesy line where they say health is wealth, but it stands true, like it
Very
affects every aspect, every facet of your life. If you are if you're not feeling well, if you're unhealthy. So it's a tough conversation, but it's a conversation that needs to be had nonetheless. And hopefully doctors like Dr. Cutress will help make this easier for every other girl, every other vulva owner, for not only in India, hopefully universally. And thank you so much for coming in, answering these questions, telling us about the 4 brigaders to have good sex, safe sex, sex at all. If there's any other question, this would be your cue, but I think we've covered most of it. Someone was suggesting that you could have used cream instead of lube, but I'm scared someone might get like sugar cream or sour cream out or something.
Or Pond's cold cream, like one is off to use. No, but thank you so much for such a lovely, engaging, wonderful conversation, and for such pertinent questions that need to be addressed so often.
No, thank you for tending them. I think, every time I have streams, conversations come up about sex or love. And that's why this stream was so important to me, because every time I say something, I'm like, I really feel like I shouldn't be saying anything because I'm not trained or equipped to answer these questions. So this really felt full circle to, end this on, because I feel this gives them an opportunity to ask someone who they should be asking. If y'all want to follow any of the incredible professionals that joined us today, all their handles are available on the chat. What to do if someone comes to know they are not physically fit while having sex? Please see a doctor. I think that's a great place to begin. But thank you so much, Dr. Cutress. Thank you so much, Tanya. This has just been so informative. I can see I'm learning about things, and I've been sexually active for a while, and these are things I'm so happy that I hope, as we celebrated with someone, they're probably going to lose their virginity. I'm hoping that, conversations like these don't only encourage people to have better, safer, healthier sex, but I also like to believe conversations like these result in more orgasms for women, which I feel like warrants a place in heaven. So, you're going to be good. Don't worry about that. And thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time talking to you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye. It's just me again. I just have a few things I want to discuss before we ended today's stream. Wait, let me just, wow, I feel like I was sharing the screen the entire time, so I'm just not used to looking at my face. So I thought, why don't I end not only this stream, but this streaming today with a little something special for you all. So, since we all spoke about love today, I thought it would only be fitting if I ended with a poem about love. So, here goes. This is a piece I haven't put out, but this piece means a lot to me, so I'm just gonna go for it. I was taught love comes and goes like seasons. The first time he kissed me, his lips were tainted purple because the jamun he just got back from his village. His fingertips were a beautiful ombre of plum to chiku colored skin. He placed the bowl of mostly ripe fruits aside to kiss me. We'd stop every few pecks to devour apples, jamuns, and guavas before they become stale. He coated the apples with copious amounts of chaat masala. He told me of how apples and spices took him back to his school days. Back to simpler days? Back to a happier family, I asked. Back to a family, he said. When I kissed him harder, he asked if I was greedy for the ras or him. But the truth is, I was needy because the thought of him and me tasted like summer delicacies that I'd crave year round, but he tells me he's here now and that's enough for today. We sit on the bank of the river closest to his childhood home, our hands sticky and seasoned with karmal and namak. Our makeshift home feels a little too small as we stock up on more jamuns, alm, and watermelons. He carefully peels the outer layer of the alm, like how one unwraps a gift. A freshly sharpened knife follows his thumb. As he multitasks, he tells me of how he got in trouble for decorating the walls of his childhood home. With the colorful rust, the fruits made sure to leave. He said that was the first time he felt like an artist. His toddler hands adorned the walls, his tiny fingers dripping of purple, yellow, and red. He leaves love marks all over chipped walls. He leaves love marks all over as we unlayer. He leaves love marks all over as we peel each other off each other. He leaves his love letters in seeds and peels. A devoured mango's gutli still promises the potential of growth. He leaves watermelon seeds everywhere he goes, so I never lose him, even if he asks to be lost. He leaves, he's gone, but promises to be back. My love comes and goes like seasonal fruits. Make sure to leave me wanting more. Coming back when he deems me worthy of his love, deems me worthy of loving him. My love comes and goes like seasonal fruits. I plant the seed and wait to root. This is the second part of this series I have about love and seasons and fruits for some reason. Fruits have been an important part of it's how I know that that time is changing. It's I know it through what fruit I'm eating, what season of fruit we're in. Like when I think back to certain moments in my life, I can tell this time happened during mango season or this happened during lychee season. So I only felt like it was fitting to end with a poem by myself since I, use different poets and their references of love. So thank you for joining the Valentine stream. Thank you for being my Valentine. I hope you learned something today. I know that I did. I only felt it only felt right to end streaming with something that gave y'all back the love y'all gave me. So Jeevan has asked, when you say ending streaming, do you mean streaming forever or only the stream? So I'm not gonna stream anymore, but I'm hoping to come back with some new video content that is, how this conversation, this entire stream was kind of laid back. It was fun. We were asking questions. We were learning so much. That's the kind of quality of content, quality of work I want to bring you because I know I have it in me. The way I planned the questions, the little pieces of art, the questions I had planned for y'all, all of this was like, is the kind of effort I want to put in because I feel like I'm not giving y'all worth the time and attention y'all are giving me, which is why I'm going to leave streaming But I'm still going to be posting videos. I'm still going to be on Discord. We're still doing things. I'm just not going to be doing this whole live thing just because it makes me incredibly anxious. Like maybe I hide it well. I mean, there are times that I haven't hidden it well, but it makes me really anxious. And I'm focusing on these many things simultaneously overwhelm me a little. But we discussed all of this and more on the stream a few weeks ago. Thank you for joining me during this season of streaming, I would say, this part of my life. I really feel like it was important for me to go through. I feel, the thing about realizing if something's not working for you is that it takes you one step closer to something that is working for you. So, thank you for joining me on this journey. Every time we've ended a stream, I've always given you all homework, right? So I've been like, your homework for today. So, your final homework. That sounds so bittersweet to say. I'm not going to cry on stream again. But your homework for today is it sounds simple, but it's not. Love unapologetically. Whether that's for yourself, whether that's for other people, never be afraid of expressing to someone how much you care for them and how you care for them. So, your last and final homework for today and for your entire life. This homework lasts you your entire life. Love unapologetically. Thanks for tuning in for the Valentine stream. This has meant so much. I don't think you all saw it, but I have little heart earrings on. My necklace says baby. I thought it had to be like fitting for our final stream. I don't like how, honestly, I feel like I'm saying my stream, but I feel like it's our streams because a big part of streaming is, what you guys contribute. So at some point, I am definitely going to come back with new video content. I know even I might cry, but I don't want to cry on stream again. Also, this stream has just been absolutely incredible, and I just don't want to taint everything that, all the amazingness of all these sessions with me getting emotional. But your final homework, love unapologetically. Thank you for joining. I will see you all soon and tuning out for the final time. Thank you for joining. Take care of yourself. Be safe in all aspects, not only masks. I hope you learned something from today. Please go show support to all of the professionals that joined us. Dr. Cuteris, Ayesha, Drishti, all their handles were online. Thank you, Therapies, for enabling this. Thank you, Rentkar, for this amazing stream setup. It's like I'm so emotional about the fact that I'm letting this go. It just feels like a big part of my life is just not going to be there anymore. But this feels like an important step to take. Thank you for being supportive of all of these things, me starting, me ending, me exploring this. I hope you had a wonderful Valentine's Day. Thank you for bringing in Valentine's evening with me, and thank you for being my Valentine. I definitely felt a lot less alone than I would have felt any other Valentine's. Tuning out for the last time. Thank you. I love you. Sorry, I don't want to be that person that says it too early, but I love you and thank you for supporting me and thank you for showering me with your love and support and your time and attention. And I hope to be back with efficient quality that makes up for everything and more that you are giving me.